So, ready to dive into Reshma Saujani's brave, not perfect?
Absolutely.
I think that whole perfectionism thing, it's something we've all kind of wrestled with.
Yeah.
Especially for women.
Right.
And this book really digs into the why.
It does.
So, ready to unpack some of the big ideas.
Yeah, let's do it.
So she starts by laying out this idea that perfectionism becomes a barrier to, well, pretty much everything. It keeps us playing it safe.
Right.
Scared to try new things.
Yeah.
And that obviously stops us from reaching our full potential.
One of the things that Saujani does so well is she connects those personal struggles with perfectionism to like these much broader cultural patterns.
Not just in our heads, right?
Exactly.
So she goes deeper and shows how girls are often praised for being good and avoiding mistakes.
Yeah.
While boys get more encouragement to experiment.
Yes.
Even if it means messing up.
I love that example in the book about the classroom scene.
Oh, yeah.
You know, where you have the girl who won't raise her hand unless she's 100% sure of the answer.
Right.
Versus the boy who's just like blurting things out.
Totally.
Even if they're wrong.
Yeah, and I think we can all relate to that.
Yes.
On some level.
Absolutely.
We've all been there.
It's not even about innate ability.
Right.
It's this conditioning, you know,
Yeah.
that makes so many women just hesitant to take risks.
Right.
Even when it could lead to big rewards.
Totally.
Think about it.
Yeah.
How often have you held back from something?
Oh, tons of times.
Because you were afraid to fail.
And looking back, those were probably the moments where I could have learned the most.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Saujani even uses her own life as an example. Remember when she left her job to run for Congress?
A very comfortable job, I might add.
Very comfortable job.
And she lost, which in our society is like a huge failure.
Right. But it becomes this pivotal turning point for her.
Okay.
And, you know, we can also dig a little deeper and see that, you know.
Women in politics face statistically proven biases.
Okay.
So it's not just about one person's experience.
Right.
It is a systemic issue.
Interesting.
But even though it was a tough loss, it ultimately led her to her true passion.
Which is?
Founding Girls Who Code.
It makes you wonder if we're all too quick to label things as failure instead of seeing them as stepping stones like she did.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, one of the most thought-provoking arguments in the book is that bravery isn't something you're born with.
Oh.
Saujani says it's a skill.
Okay.
It's something you develop.
Like a muscle you have to train.
Yeah, like a muscle.
That's a cool way to think about it.
Yeah.
But then the question becomes, what does bravery even look like in everyday life?
In everyday life.
Not all of us are running for office.
Right.
Great.
Well, think about it this way.
Okay.
There are different types of bravery, right? There's physical bravery.
Oh, like a firefighter running into a burning building.
Right.
Then there's moral bravery.
Okay.
Standing up for what's right, even when it's unpopular. Saujani focuses more on the kind of bravery that helps us reach our potential, whether it's in our careers, relationships, or creative pursuits.
So it's more about pushing past those internal limits rather than facing physical danger.
Exactly.
Okay.
And it can take so many forms.
Like what?
Speaking up in a meeting even when you're nervous.
Okay.
That's bravery. Learning a new skill, like coding when you think you're not a tech person.
Right.
That's bravery.
That's brave.
Even asking for that raise you deserve.
Yeah.
That can take a lot of courage.
What about saying no?
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes I think that's the bravest thing you can do.
Absolutely.
Especially if you're prone to people-pleasing.
It's about prioritizing your own goals and well-being.
Right.
Even if it means disappointing others.
Yeah.
And that takes real strength.
So Johnny actually gives some great tips.
She does.
On how to start cultivating this kind of bravery.
Yes.
She talks about taking small steps, like sharing an idea in a meeting.
Yeah.
Then reflecting on how it felt afterward.
Yeah, just get comfortable with that feeling of discomfort. Right. Because that's where the growth happens.
It's so easy to stay in our comfort zones, but that's where we stagnate.
That's where we stagnate, exactly.
Every time you do something that stretches you a little bit, you're building that bravery muscle.
Yes, you are.
Okay. Now, let's dive into this good girl syndrome.
Okay.
Because this part really hit home for me.
Yeah.
It's that whole thing where we're trying so hard to please everyone, be perfect, avoid conflict at all costs.
And it's not just about individual personality. It's deeply rooted in societal expectations. Think about how girls are often rewarded for being agreeable and accommodating.
Yeah.
That pressure to be good can end up silencing our voices and limiting our ambitions.
So we over-prepare for every task.
Yes.
we avoid confrontation and often stay stuck in safe, predictable roles.
Yes.
It's like we're afraid to rock the boat or disappoint anyone.
Exactly.
But here's the thing.
Okay.
Whose standards are we even trying to meet?
That's the question.
Why do we feel this constant need to be perfect?
Right.
Saujani urges us to question those expectations.
Yes.
And redefine what it really means to be good.
I love that.
It's not about being flawless. It's about being authentic and courageous.
Yeah.
Even if it means making some waves.
It's a powerful shift in perspective.
Now, before we move on, I want to make sure we're connecting this back to you.
Okay.
Think about your own life.
Yeah.
How have these societal expectations of goodness shown up for you? Have they held you back in any way?
It's definitely something to reflect on, because often we're so caught up in these patterns that we don't even realize how much they're influencing our choices.
And once you start to see those patterns, you can start to break free.
You can start to break free. That's where the real transformation begins.
Now, I know we have a lot more to cover, but this is a good place to pause and let these ideas sink in.
Okay.
We'll be right back to delve deeper into Brave, Not Perfect, so stay tuned.
Sounds good. Welcome back to our deep dive into Brave, Not Perfect.
So we've been talking about perfectionism and the good girl syndrome. What's resonated most with you so far?
Well, I think it's definitely making me think differently about how those societal expectations have shaped my own choices, even in subtle ways.
But what I'm really eager to dig into now is the practical stuff.
Okay.
Like, how do we actually become braver?
Yeah.
It's easy to talk about it.
It is.
But putting it into action feels like a whole other challenge.
It's not always easy.
Right.
But remember, Saujani frames bravery as a skill.
Right.
And just like any skill, it takes practice.
Okay.
She talks about these daily acts of bravery, which I think is a really helpful concept.
So it's not about waiting for some big heroic moment. It's about finding those smaller opportunities for courage.
Exactly.
In our everyday lives.
It's about building those bravery muscles through consistent, intentional action.
Okay, I'm all about concrete examples.
Okay.
What are some things that qualify as a daily act of bravery?
Well, think about your own work or personal life.
Okay.
Maybe it's speaking up in a meeting, even if you're nervous about sharing your idea.
Okay.
Or maybe it's reaching out to someone you admire for advice, even though you're feeling a little intimidated.
Oh, I feel that way. Networking always feels a little scary.
Yeah.
Like putting yourself out there for rejection.
Right.
But the potential payoff is huge.
Exactly. And sometimes these acts of bravery might involve setting boundaries.
Okay.
Saying no to requests or commitments that you know will drain your energy.
Right.
Or don't align with your priorities.
Protecting your time and energy.
Yes.
I think for a lot of us, especially women,
yeah,
that's a muscle we need to strengthen.
It is, and it's a form of self-respect, which is crucial for building that inner confidence to be brave in other areas of your life.
So Johnny also talks about celebrating those small wins.
Yeah.
Which I think is so important.
It is.
It's easy to downplay our accomplishments.
It is.
Especially when they seem minor.
Yeah.
But she encourages us to acknowledge and appreciate each step we take towards becoming braver.
It's all about creating that positive reinforcement.
Right.
Every time we celebrate a win, no matter how small, we're strengthening that bravery muscle and making it more likely that we'll continue to push ourselves further.
So instead of focusing on how far we still have to go, we're focusing on the progress we're making.
Exactly.
It's a much healthier and more motivating perspective, isn't it?
It is, absolutely. And it ties into the importance of shifting our inner dialogue.
Oh, that inner critic.
Yes.
We all have it.
We do.
But I think for those of us prone to perfectionism, it can be especially loud and harsh.
It can be.
What's she say about tackling that?
She emphasizes the importance of replacing that critical voice with a more supportive and encouraging one.
Okay.
So when we make mistakes, instead of beating ourselves up, we can ask, what can I learn from this experience? Or what can I do differently next time?
It's about offering ourselves the same kindness and understanding that we would offer to a close friend.
Right. Exactly.
You'd never talk to someone we care about the way we sometimes talk to ourselves.
And it's about recognizing that setbacks and failures are an inevitable part of the growth process.
Totally.
So instead of viewing them as evidence of our inadequacy, we can see them as opportunities for learning and resilience.
And she talks about this specific technique.
She does.
For reframing those negative thoughts. Something about asking yourself, What's the worst that could happen?
Yes. She suggests walking through those potential outcomes.
Oh,
because often we realize that the consequences of failure are not nearly as dire as our fear-based thinking would have us believe.
Right.
It helps us gain a more realistic and balanced perspective.
That's such a helpful reminder. It's easy to get caught up in those what-if scenarios.
It is.
And catastrophize things.
Yeah.
But when we break it down logically, we often see that the risks are manageable.
It's about taking back that power from our fear and making more rational, empowered choices.
So it's not about pretending we're not afraid, but learning to manage that fear and not letting it dictate our actions.
Precisely. Bravery isn't the absence of fear. It's about choosing to act in spite of that fear.
Okay.
And the more we practice these daily acts of bravery, the more comfortable we become with those uncomfortable feelings.
It's like exposure therapy for your inner critic.
I love that analogy.
And as we get more comfortable with that discomfort, we open ourselves up to a whole world of possibilities.
Yes.
That we might have otherwise missed out on.
That's the beautiful irony of it. By embracing those moments of vulnerability and discomfort, we actually unlock greater potential for growth, creativity, and fulfillment.
Now, I know you're a big believer in the power of mentors and role models.
I am.
Does Saujani talk about that at all in the book?
She does touch on that.
Okay.
And I think it's a crucial part of the journey. It's so helpful to have people in your life who embody the qualities you admire, who inspire you to be your best self.
So it's not necessarily about finding someone who's achieved massive success or fame, but rather someone who demonstrates those values and behaviors that we want to cultivate in our own lives.
Exactly. It could be a colleague who always speaks her mind, a friend who took a leap of faith and started her own business, or even a family member who approaches challenges with a positive attitude.
And sometimes those inspiring figures might not even be people we know personally. They could be authors, artists, activists, entrepreneurs. Whose work we admire from afar.
Absolutely. There's so much to be learned from observing how other people navigate challenges and overcome obstacles. Their stories can provide us with guidance, inspiration, and a sense of possibility. And by surrounding ourselves with these examples of bravery, whether in person or through their work, we create a more supportive and encouraging environment for our own growth.
Now, I remember from the book, Saujani has this great suggestion about keeping a bravery log.
I love the bravery log idea.
It sounds like such a simple but effective tool.
It is.
Can you talk a little bit about how that works and why it's so helpful?
It's basically a journal where you record those moments of courage. No matter how small they might seem. It could be something like speaking up in a meeting, setting a boundary with a friend, or finally starting that project you've been putting off. The act of writing it down makes you more mindful of those moments. And it also creates a tangible record of your progress.
It's like building a portfolio of your own bravery. I bet it's incredibly empowering to look back over those entries and see how much you've grown.
Exactly. It's a powerful reminder of your own resilience and capacity for change. And it's something you can refer back to whenever those self-doubts start to creep in.
So if we were to summarize some of those key strategies that Saujani recommends for cultivating bravery, it sounds like it's about practicing those daily acts of courage, celebrating our small wins, reframing those negative thoughts, seeking out inspiring role models, and keeping a bravery log. Did I miss anything?
I think you captured the essence of it. And remember, it's an ongoing journey, not a destination. There will be setbacks. There will be moments of doubt, but the key is to keep practicing, keep learning, and keep moving forward.
Well, this has been a really insightful exploration of these practical strategies for cultivating bravery. What else can we look forward to in the final part of our deep dive?
Well, in the next part, we'll explore how these individual acts of courage can actually contribute to a much bigger picture, creating positive change in the world around us.
Sounds like things are about to get really inspiring.
They are.
I can't wait to dive into that. So we're back wrapping up our deep dive into Brave, Not Perfect. And I love how this book doesn't just stop at personal growth. It takes this whole idea of bravery a step further.
It does. So Johnny argues that when we choose bravery, it's not just about us as individuals. It has the potential to create this ripple effect, impacting the world around us.
So it's like our own courage can spark change on a bigger level.
Think about it. When someone is brave enough to speak up against injustice or challenge a harmful stereotype, That takes incredible courage.
Right.
But it can also inspire others to do the same.
It's like that old saying, be the change you want to see in the world.
Yes.
But with an extra layer of, well, bravery.
Exactly. And so Johnny specifically talks about how this applies to closing the gender gap, which is something she's obviously deeply passionate about.
Of course.
When more women embrace bravery, it has a direct impact on fields that are traditionally dominated by men.
So we're talking STEM careers, leadership positions, entrepreneurship.
Yes, all those areas where women have historically been underrepresented.
So how does bravery actually play into that?
Okay.
What does it look like in action?
It can take so many forms.
Okay.
Imagine a young girl who's always been told she's not good at math.
Right.
But she's inspired by a female role model who's a successful engineer.
Okay.
That spark of bravery might push her to take that advanced math class, even if she's scared of failing.
Or a woman who's been passed over for promotions because she's seen as too assertive, but she finds the courage to speak up.
Yes.
To advocate for herself and her worth.
Yes, that act of bravery could change the entire dynamic of her workplace.
And it's not just about women, of course.
Right.
When anyone chooses bravery, regardless of gender, it creates a more inclusive and equitable society.
For everyone.
It's like we're raising the bar for what's possible.
Yes.
And that benefits all of us.
When we value bravery over perfection, we create a culture that embraces risk-taking, celebrates diversity, and encourages people to bring their whole selves to the table.
That's a powerful vision.
It is.
But it also makes me think about the responsibility that comes with choosing bravery.
Yeah.
It's not always easy.
Right.
And there can be consequences.
You're right. Bravery doesn't mean being reckless or insensitive.
Right.
It's about being thoughtful, considering the potential impact of our actions, and then making a conscious choice to step forward, even when it feels uncomfortable.
And sometimes it's about choosing our battles.
Yes.
Knowing when to speak up and when to step back and let someone else take the lead.
Exactly. It's about finding that balance between pushing ourselves and also recognizing our own limits.
This has been such a fascinating conversation.
It has.
But I want to bring it back to you, the listener, one last time.
Okay.
Saujani ends the book with this powerful question. If you could try one thing completely without fear of failure, what would it be?
What dreams have you been putting off because of that fear?
Yeah.
What would you attempt if you knew you couldn't fail?
I think those are questions worth sitting with for a while.
Yeah.
And hopefully this deep dive has given you some tools and inspiration to start answering them.
If even one listener feels empowered to take a step outside their comfort zone, to embrace their own bravery and create positive change in their own life, then this conversation has been a success.
That's a beautiful thought.
Thank you.
So to everyone listening, thank you for joining us on this exploration of brave, not perfect.
Yes. Thank you.
May this be just the beginning of your own journey towards a braver, more fulfilling life.